is Diane Rogers, and during this video program, I'm going to teach you how to use ObjectPAL, the powerful programming language included with Paradox 5.0 for Windows. This series of 7 lessons is designed for beginning ObjectPAL developers. It assumes that you have a working knowledge of both Paradox and the Windows environment. If you're brand new to Paradox, you might want to begin by viewing the companion video, Learn Paradox for Windows Today, available from Borland. Here's a quick rundown of the contents. This first lesson is called Preparing to Program. Here, you'll explore the object-oriented nature of Paradox and learn how to program by attaching code to an object. The second lesson features interactive highlights for developers, which touches on features like table lookups, restructuring, and adding radio buttons. In Lesson 2, you'll begin by creating a custom order entry application. The third lesson, entitled ObjectPAL Actions, is where you'll start to work with objects, methods, and properties, creating buttons for your custom application. Variables and programming constructs is the subject of Lesson 4, and there, you'll create a customized reporting dialog. Lesson 5 covers event flow and processing. This explains how Paradox reacts to and processes events, teaching you the best place to attach your code. In Lesson 6, we'll discuss using a T-cursor. A T-cursor is a pointer that lets you manipulate data without displaying the table. This speeds up your applications. In Lesson 7, Building Menus, you'll finalize your application by building a series of custom menus and pop-ups. Before we start, you should have the Paradox program, including the sample files, installed on your computer. We'll be using the sample files to build a custom application. It's a good idea to keep your Paradox User's Guide and the Guide to ObjectPAL nearby for reference. For more information on programming in ObjectPAL, you can pick up the Paradox 5.0 for Windows Programmer's Guide, part of the Borland Press series from Random House Electronic Publishing. ObjectPAL is the Paradox for Windows programming language. It's object-based, meaning that you place objects and then attach code to them. ObjectPAL is a very visual development language and is event-driven. ObjectPAL responds to events like mouse clicks, moving between fields, and menu selections. The form is the heart of ObjectPAL. To build any application, you start with a form and then place design objects and code on that form. Well, to begin, what's an object? An object can be a simple box or field, or more complex like a form, report, table, or query. Essentially, any item that you select or interact with is an object. To demonstrate how you work with objects, let's build a practice application by creating a new form. Select the form icon on the project viewer, hold down the Shift key, and left-click on the form icon. From the New Form dialog, select Blank to open a new form. In this design area, create a box by clicking on the toolbar and using the mouse to place a new box. When you right-click on the box, you open the Object Inspector, which shows the box's properties, the set of attributes that are unique to the box. The box's properties include color, pattern, and frame. Let's change the color property to gray by selecting Color and clicking on Gray. You refer to objects in Paradox as User Interface Objects, or UI objects. For example, if you point to the blank page of your form and right-click, you see that it too is an object with properties. Each UI object has a name, which is shown in the highlighted area at the top of the Object Inspector. By default, Paradox gives each object a name when it is created. This default name is called a noise name and is usually made up of a #, the name of the tool that was used to define the object, and a consecutive integer. You can change the name by clicking on the highlighted area and entering a new value. Let's call this object the page. Now click on OK, and when you open the Object Inspector again, you'll see the new name. Methods let you tell an object what to do. A method is ObjectPAL code that defines the object's response to an event. For example, You can create a push button and then add a method to change the color of the page. To do this, click the button icon, place the button, and change the label to Change Color. Now press Escape or use the mouse to select the button. Right-click, choose Methods, and double-click on Push Button to open the code window. Type the page, dot. Now open the Tools menu and select Properties. You'll see the Display Objects and Properties dialog. Scroll down to find the object we are working with, Page. Choose Page, and you'll see that the second window fills with properties for the page. When you choose Color, a list of available values appears. Click on Insert Property, now press OK. Now type $blue in your code. You can check for errors by clicking the Check Syntax icon, and everything looks OK. Now click on the View Data icon to run your form. When you click on the Color button, the page color changes to blue. For now, let's close this form by double-clicking on the control box in the upper left corner of the screen. When prompted if you want to save the form, choose Yes, and then enter Practice as the name. And click on OK. Now that you understand the concepts behind programming with ObjectPAL, let's start to create an application. You're going to be building an order entry system based on the customer, orders, and line items tables that are included in your Paradox sample directory. Remember, Paradox is a database, and all applications will center around the structure and relationship of tables. You should never underestimate the power of properly designed tables, reports, and queries. They can greatly speed up Paradox application development. Before you write a line of code, make sure that adequate time and attention have been brought to database design, as is the case with these sample files. Your Paradox working directory should be set to Sample. If not, click the Browse button and select pdocswin sample. If you had a previous version of Paradox installed, this directory may be called Sample 5. Click on OK to return to the project viewer, and then select the Forms icon. Again, create a new form by pressing the Shift key and holding it down while you click the left mouse button. This time, click on the Data Model Design Layout button. A data model is how you establish relationships between tables in Paradox. Double-click on Customer, the first table you want to add to the data model, and then double-click on Orders. To set up the relationship between the tables, simply hold down the left mouse button and draw a line between the tables, from Customer to Orders. Click on OK to move forward. Now you're in the Design Layout dialog. Here you can preview what your form will look like. In the lower left-hand corner, you'll notice a selection of style sheets. These are predefined templates to change the look and feel of your application. Choose Control3D.ft. See? The design layout area has changed. Let's edit the fields that are contained in this form. Click on the Show Fields button, and you'll see all the fields in the Customer table. From the Orders table, you want to have only the order number, sale date, total invoice, and balance due. To edit these fields, click on the drop-down menu under Table and select the Orders table. First, click on the total invoice field, and then use the up arrow to move the total invoice next to sale date. Then repeat this process for the balance due field. Now, to eliminate the other fields, click on Ship Date and hold down the Shift key, and then click on Month. All of the fields in that range are selected. When you click the Remove Field button below, just the 4 fields you want remain. Click on OK to start the form. At this point, Paradox has created a default form design, and you can now manipulate the placement of any object. Let's remove the first contact field by using the mouse to select it, and then pressing the Delete key. Move the country and phone fields by holding down the Shift key to use Multi-Select. Move these fields next to the state, province, and zip code fields by dragging them into position with the mouse. Now let's place a new UI object on the form. You can add a graphic logo to your form by first clicking the toolbar's Graphic tool and then dragging a rectangle to place it. Right-click to open the Object Inspector and choose Define Graphic and then Paste From. In the Paste From Graphic File dialog, you'll see a file called logo.bmp. Select this file and choose OK. To reposition the graphic, select it and then drag it to the location you want. We're running out of space, so let's create a second page for the form. Open the Form menu and choose Page, then Add. This new page will contain detailed entries for each order. The table containing these entries is Line Item, and we need to add it to the data model. Click the Data Model tool, and then select Line Item by double-clicking. Remember that the data model is the foundation for all Paradox forms, reports, and queries. It allows you to create complex relationships simply by drawing a line between tables. In this case, draw a line from the Orders table to the Line Item table. And again, you'll see that you've defined a one-to-many relationship. Click on OK to accept the link. Add a table object to the new page by clicking on the Table tool and dragging out a rectangle. Right-click, choose Define Table, and select Line Item. The table contains 4 fields: stock number, selling price, quantity, and total. Since an order could be fairly long, place a scroll bar to aid navigation up and down the table. Right-click and just choose Vertical Scroll Bar. Now you can add a title to your page by clicking on the Text tool and then dragging out a small region in the upper left. The cursor is placed in the box, and you can enter the title Customer, Order, Entry. The style sheet default is 10-point type, which is a little small for a title. Before you make the type larger, right-click and choose Design Sizing, and then Fit Text. As the type gets larger, the text region will expand to accommodate it. Again, right-click, choose Font, Size, and 18. You'll notice that the region expands automatically. If you want the title on one line, draw out the size of the region, and the text will realign. You also want to track which order these line items are placed in, so let's add the order number field to the form. Click on the Field tool and drag out a region. Right-click to define it, and choose the ellipses to move into the data model. Click on the drop-down in the Orders table, select the order number field, and click OK. There are 2 final fields that you want to add: customer number and customer name, both from the customer table. To make the form easier to read, create a box for these new fields. Click on the Box tool and drag out a region on the right side. Now click on the Field tool and drag out another region. Right-click, choose Define Field, and select the customer number field. Repeat the process to add the name field. You can easily resize any field by selecting the Edit region within the field and stretching it out. The entire form has properties like the fields and the pages. To create a larger design area, first maximize the form by double-clicking on the title bar. Now open the Properties menu, choose Form, and then Window Style. Next, click off the checks in the boxes next to vertical and horizontal scroll bars. While you're at it, move to the title box and give your application a name: Customer Order Tracking System. Click on OK, and you'll notice that the scroll bars are gone and the title has changed in the title bar. To change the form so each page is a separate screen, open the Form menu and select Page, Tile, and then Stack Pages. Now you can press F3 to move to the first page of the form. To see how much you've accomplished, click on the View Data icon. You can use the toolbar buttons to navigate through the records. To move to the second page of your form, hold down the Shift key and press the F4 function key. You'll see that you're pulling in the customer number and name and have all the information about each order. Hold down the Shift key and press F3 to return to the first page. Finally, you can save your new form. Open the File menu and choose Close. Since this is a new form, Paradox will prompt you to ask if you want to save the form. Click on the Yes button and then enter My App in the new file name box and click OK. In this first lesson, you learned about ObjectPAL's objects, properties, and methods. Working with some of the sample tables, you began to create your application by designing a form with several tables, additional fields, and other UI objects. Next time, we'll enhance our application by exploring some interactive features designed to reduce the amount of programming you have to do. One of the first things to remember when creating an application in ObjectPAL is to let Paradox do the work for you. This can mean using secondary indices for lookups, using the data model to create complex relational joins, or using the auto-increment field type to get the next unique order number, all without having to attach any code. In this lesson, we'll explore some of these powerful interactive features designed to save programmers time and code. You'll learn about working with table lookups, restructuring a table, adding dynamic calculated and summary fields, modifying a field object to include a drop-down list, and adding radio buttons to your form. Understanding these interactive capabilities is a good step into programming with ObjectPAL. At this point, it would be useful to create a lookup from the stock table to the line item section of our form, so that when a customer orders an item, the correct information from the stock table is automatically included. Using table lookups is a good way to maintain data integrity. To create your lookup, click on the tables icon in the project viewer, and then right-click on the line item table and choose Restructure. You want the table lookup to be based on the stock number field, so select that field and then move to the Table Properties drop-down and choose Table Lookup. Now click on the Define button and then double-click on the stock.db table to select it as the lookup table. You'll see in the box at the top that the lookup field was placed automatically and linked to the stock number in the stock table. The lookup type you want is all corresponding fields. So click on that item and Paradox will bring down all fields identical in the two tables. Next, click on Help and Fill, click on OK, and choose Save. Now change the Project Viewer filter to Forms and double-click on My App to open your form. Press Shift F4 to move to page 2, click on the Edit Data button, and cursor down to open a new line in the line item table. Move to the stock field. You'll see that the status bar at the bottom of your screen now tells you that you can press Control Spacebar for Lookup Help. When you do that, the Lookup Help window is opened. Choose OK, and you'll see that the first stock number and quantity have been pulled into your form. That's not exactly what you want, so press Control-Delete to remove the line item, close the form, and let's examine the structure of the field names in the two tables. Click on the Tables icon, then right-click on Line Item and choose Info Structure. You'll see that the fields are named Order Number, Stock Number, Selling Price, Quantity, and Total. Click on the Done button, and then you can look at the other table. Select Stock, right-click, and this time choose Restructure, because you want to rename some of the fields to make the lookup work properly. First, move down to the Quantity field and change the name to Quantity in Stock. You have to give this a different name from the quantity field in the line item table. Otherwise, every time you entered a new item, it would automatically look up and copy the total quantity for that item in inventory, not the amount ordered by a customer. Move down to the field name List Price and change that to Selling Price, the same name as is in the line item table. Now the price will be automatically looked up and copied to your form. Now click on Save, and you can open the form again. Maximize the form by double-clicking on the title bar, then move to page 2. Now, when you enter Edit mode and use Control-Space to look up a new item, you'll see that the stock number and the selling price have been looked up from the stock table. Next, you need to move into Design mode and make sure that the extended total fills in. You do that by adding a calculated field. First, right-click on the total field and choose Define Field, and then click the ellipses. In the data model, scroll over so that you can see all of the line item table, and then open the drop-down and choose Selling Price. Move down to the box in the lower left corner and click on Calculated. Then click the Copy Field button. The Selling Price field is now shown in the box, so add an asterisk to indicate multiplication, and then select the Quantity field from Line Item and again copy the field to the calculation box. Click on OK, and you'll return to your form and see that the total is now a formula. You want to use this same formula for the sum total of the order, so copy it to the clipboard by clicking on the Copy to Clipboard icon, and then clicking your mouse in the lower region, here, and then clicking on the Paste From Clipboard icon. We want to make this field a grand total, so right-click and choose Define Field, and then Ellipsis, and move down to the box and enter Sum, open parentheses, and then press the End key and close parentheses. Now you've defined the extended total for each line item, and then the complete total for the order. Let's add 3 more fields to the form, which are going to be custom defined to include shipping and payment information. Again, you want to group these objects to make them easier for the user to locate. So first, drag out a box on the right. Next, add a title by creating a text box and then entering shipping information. Center the title at the top of your box. We will reuse this box, so choose Design Duplicate. Another box appears below. Drag a new field out in the shipping information box, right-click on it, choose Define Field, and select Ship Via from the Orders table, and choose OK. To make it easier for the user, you can change this field to a drop-down edit list. Right-click on the field, choose Display Type, and then drop-down Edit. This opens the Define List dialog, where you can enter selection values. Go ahead and type in UPS, and then Enter. Then repeat for US Mail, DHL, and FedEx. Click on the Sort List button, and then click on OK. Now you have a drop-down edit region which contains all the values for Ship Via. If you like, you can right-click and change the color to white. Next, place a related shipping field by dragging out a field object, defining it, and choosing Ship Date from the Orders table. You can add another field for terms from the same table. Open the Design menu, and then choose Duplicate. Now when you right-click on the field, Paradox gives you the list of the fields from the same table, because you've used Design Duplicate. Select Terms, and now you have all the fields for the shipping information laid out. The last information that you're going to add to the form in this lesson relates to payment method. In your second box, change the word shipping to payment. You need to drag out a field object to fit in the box. This box will contain 6 different radio buttons, so drag out a large field object over the table to allow enough room to resize it. Right-click, choose Display Type, and then Radio Buttons. Again, you get the Define List dialog. This time, enter Visa, MC for MasterCard, Amex for American Express, DC for Diners Club, Cash, and Check. Click on the Sort List button, and then click on OK. Select the bottom 3 buttons by holding down the Shift key and then clicking on each of them. Then you can grab them all at once and move them to the right of the first 3 buttons. Right-click and define the field as Payment Method from the Orders table. Finally, select the entire group of buttons and move it over to the box you've created for payment information. Now when you run your form, you'll see that you've created an elaborate application without entering any code at all. It has 2 pages, and moving to the second, you can see that there are extended totals for each line item and a sum total for each order. It has a drop-down edit area for shipping method, and even radio buttons so the user can indicate a payment method just by clicking the desired button. As you've seen, you can accomplish a tremendous amount just by getting familiar with the interactive capabilities of Paradox for Windows. Now you have a good understanding of these UI objects and the properties that you can apply to them. Next time, you'll use ObjectPAL to change and alter these properties. As you saw in the first lesson, ObjectPAL works by attaching code to objects you place on forms, and then the objects respond to events. Because of its object-oriented nature, ObjectPAL is easy to learn and use. In this lesson, you'll start by customizing the form designer for ObjectPAL development. You'll work with objects, properties, and methods, learning about the object tree and how to name and reference objects through ObjectPAL. You'll create some new buttons that move between pages or search for data. Finally, you'll initiate events like deleting and inserting records, learn how to add dialog windows, and limit user access to the toolbar. Let's begin by opening the practice form you created in the first lesson. Select Forms, right-click on Practice.fsl, and choose Design. Let's configure your ObjectPAL environment for application development. Open the View menu, and you'll see that there are a few different options: Edit Data, View Data, Design Form, and Zoom. In the Properties menu is another set of options. And finally, from the Tools menu, you have access to the Project Viewer, Data Model Designer, and Object Tree. To enhance these menus, open the Properties menu, select ObjectPAL, and click on the Advanced level. This gives you access to the entire library of ObjectPAL methods. Now, from the Form menu, click on Developer menu, and click on OK. You'll see that your menus have changed a bit. There is a new menu called Program. From this, you can run, compile, or deliver your application. When a form has ObjectPAL code attached to it, delivering protects your application by prohibiting changes to the form. A form that has been delivered has an FDL extension. The View, Properties, and Tools menus have also been expanded. From the View menu, you have a new series of options at the bottom. Debug, which allows you to launch the debugger to identify and solve problems in your code. Watches, to keep an eye on variables as they change. Breakpoints that halt execution. And finally, the tracer in the call stack. The tracer lists ObjectPAL events as they execute, providing a record of what happened. The call stack lists all methods and procedures called since your application started running. From the Tools menu, you'll see that you now have access to types, properties, constants, and keywords, which are the basic elements of the ObjectPAL language. Now let's look at how objects, their properties, and methods interact with ObjectPAL. Remember when you created the practice form, you change the name of the page to the page. Once you knew this name, you could do things like change its color. Well, using a field's name, you can extract the data in it. Click on the Field Tool button and drag out a new, undefined field. Then right-click to change its display type to drop-down Edit. Next, fill the field with color property constant values like red, yellow, green, and blue by typing in each color's name and then pressing Enter. You'll see the list of colors on the right. Click on OK. In the next step, right-click on the drop-down field and change its name to My Field. Finally, right-click on the button, choose Methods, Push Button, and modify the code thepage.color equals blue to read thepage.color equals myfield.value. This code extracts the value from the field and uses it to change the color of the page. Run the form and click on the drop-down box to select a color and push the button. You see the interaction of objects, properties, and methods. Now, double-click on the control box in the upper left-hand corner to close the form and choose Yes to save the changes you have made. From the project viewer, open the application you've started, My App, in design mode by right-clicking and choosing Design. We want to rename this first page to Cust Page because it contains customer information. To rename an object, right-click and click on the highlighted name to enter a new name for the page. Choose OK. Now press the Escape key and notice that the page is no longer selected. There is an option on the toolbar called the Object Tree. Click on that icon and you'll notice that the first object placed on our form is the form itself. Paradox named it Pound Form 1. We've renamed Pound Page 2 to Cust Page, and you can see this on the object tree. The object tree shows every UI object on your form. You can print the object tree at any time by clicking on the File menu and choosing Print. Close the object tree and then move to the second page of the form. With the page selected, right-click and then click on the title bar to rename the page Ord Page. Then click on OK. It would be much easier to move between these two pages without having to use the hotkeys Shift F3 and Shift F4. To accomplish this, you can use the object's name and the Move To command. First, create a push button by clicking on the push button icon on the toolbar and then dragging out a button. Every object in Paradox has a default behavior, how it acts without any enhancements to its built-in code. In the case of a push button, the default behavior is to push in and push out, the visual look of depressing the button. You can modify this default behavior by right-clicking on the push button and choosing Methods. Pin the method inspector to the form and then double-click on the word Push button. This opens the window showing the code for the method. Enter the name of the first page of the form, Cust Page, followed by a dot, then move to and open and close parentheses. You can check the syntax by clicking on the Check Syntax icon, then close the method by selecting the black arrow to save. The method inspector now shows Push button followed by an asterisk, indicating that code has been added. Select the label, and you can enter a new name for the push button, Customers. To create a button to move from the customer page to the order page, copy this button to the clipboard, then press Shift F3 to move to the first page. Click in the region where you want the push button to go, and paste the button. Notice that the label is maintained, so you need to change it to Orders, as well as modify the code which has been copied. Reusable code is a fundamental concept in ObjectPAL. It can be copied from page to page or even to another application. The important thing is to create the original code in a generic fashion. Edit the code by selecting the push button from the method inspector. Change the name in the code from Cust Page to Ord Page. Check the syntax and then close it. Now remove the method inspector and run the form. When you click on the button, notice that with the mouse button held down, you see the default behavior, the visual image of the button depressed. When you release the mouse button, the code is triggered and the form moves to the second page. It's the same when you use the Customers button. Now let's focus on some action events. Press F8 to move into design mode. Next, draw out a box to contain our new buttons. Drag out a new button, which will program to move to the next record in your database. Click on the label and delete it. Now you're going to place a graphic on this button. If you want to use the graphics that appear on other Paradox buttons, pause now and create a graphic file to use with this lesson. I've done this already for each of the toolbar icons. Place a graphic on your button using the Graphic tool. Right-click, choose Define Graphic, and paste from. Select the small graphic you want by double-clicking on it. Now, if you right-click and get rid of the frame, you have a button with a graphic that indicates Move to the next record. Let's add some code to the button you just created. Right-click on the button, choose Methods, and then Push button. Next, open the Tools menu and select Constants. Constants are names for predefined values, the same as property settings, like the form color blue. But instead of the word blue, ObjectPAL represents colors as integers. This helps to centralize changes and optimize memory when you compile your applications. You'll be using a series of action constants, which are the key to controlling data entry in ObjectPAL. Whichever event triggers an action, the action always maps to one of these action constants. And you can see a variety of types dependent upon the kind of action you're using. You'll be using action data commands to move through the data, just as a user would. To find the action constant for next record, scroll down on the list and choose Data Next Record. Click on Insert Constant and then click on OK, and the constant is pasted into your code. Put a closed parentheses at the end and then move to the front with the Home key and type active.action and an open parentheses. Active tells Paradox to work from the object that has focus. For example, our form has two tables, Customer and Orders. Active allows the action code to work on whichever table the user has placed the cursor in. Check your syntax and move into Run mode. Now, when you click on the button, you move to the next record in the database. Enter Design mode, and you can now add a number of buttons to your application using a variety of action constants. To save time here, we've created buttons using the action constants Data Prior Record, Data Prior Set, Data Next Set, Data First, and Data Last. There's another set of buttons that you want to define, so let's drag them out and define their labels. The first is Delete. Move the label over and you can place a graphic on the button as you did before. From Paradox, define your bitmap by right-clicking. Paste from, and I'll choose my predefined bitmap, delete.bmp. Now you have a button with a label and a bitmap, but no code associated with it. If you open the Design menu and choose Duplicate, you can copy the button with the label and graphic. Do this 2 more times, and you've got a column of 4 buttons. Space them apart a little bit, and now you can select all 4 by clicking on them while holding down the Shift key, and then use Design, Duplicate, again clicking on the right side of the box to add another column of 4 buttons. You can use Design, Align, Align Right to stack your buttons neatly, and then Design, Adjust Spacing, Vertical to make them even. Then the same for the left column of buttons. We've ended up with 1 extra button, so let's select and delete it. And since the Orders button we did first is slightly smaller, select Design, Adjust Size, Maximum Width, then Maximum Height. Now it's time to attach code. For the delete button, you want to use your action constant to delete the record. Enter active.action, open paren, then open the Tools menu again and look in the Action Data commands and use Data Delete Record. Insert the constant, choose OK, add the close paren, check your syntax, and you have the push button to delete records. The next button will be Insert, so change the label. Again, right-click on the button, choose Methods, and pin the Methods Inspector. Double-click on Push button, enter active.action, open paren, and in this case, type Data Insert Record. Add a close paren, check your syntax, and close the code window. Now you need a Locate button, so click on the next button and change the label to Locate. Notice that if you have the label selected, the actions or the methods that are available apply to the text object and not to the push button. So select the push button to get to the push button methods. Enter your code and then look up the constant and pick Action Data Search. Finish it up as before. The next button will be Search Next, so change the label. Then repeat the process and add the code, the action constant, Data Search Next. Next you need a Print button. We'll save the code for later, but for now you can change the label to Print. Finally, the last button is Edit, so you can toggle in and out of Data Edit mode. Change the label to Edit, then open your code and select Data Toggle Edit as your action constant. Finish the code, check the syntax, and select File Save. Let's take a closer look at the buttons we've created. I've used Edit Paste From to replace the delete bitmaps with bitmaps created using Print Screen and Paintbrush. Use an action constant to change the final delete button. Now you can move into Run mode and test each of the buttons. You can initiate actions like a user would, so move into Edit mode and delete a record by pressing your Delete button. Notice that when you try to delete this record, you get a warning that Master has detailed records, cannot delete or modify. This is because of referential integrity that has been defined. Since there are orders dependent upon this customer, Paradox will not let you delete the customer record. You can insert a record and delete the new record since there are no orders associated with this new customer. You can also tab down to the name field. Click on the Locate button and type in a value you know exists. Paradox will move to that record. Then you can search for the next record or toggle in and out of edit mode, and so on. Paradox also offers a collection of predefined methods from a runtime library. Press F8 to enter design mode and select the unused Print button. Right-click on it, choose Methods, double-click on Push button, and enter the code Message Info. You can find out more about using this particular procedure by placing your cursor on Message Info and pressing the F1 key. Paradox takes you directly to the ObjectPAL online reference. You'll see that Message Info is a procedure that displays a dialog box containing the information icon, a message, and an OK button. The construct is Message Info, a caption, and the text string. Close the help screen by double-clicking, then enter open parentheses, quote, my program, close quote, comma, quote, hello world, close quote, and close the parentheses. Check the syntax, close the code window, and run the application. When you click on the button, the dialog box comes up and will have focus until the user clicks on the OK button and moves back into the application. The final alteration you'll make is to remove access to the toolbar when the application is running. This is so the user cannot accidentally enter design mode and change the form. In design mode, right-click on the title bar, and you'll see that you bring up the list of properties for the entire form. Select Methods, and then scroll down and double-click on Open. Enter the code Hide Speed Bar, followed by an open and close parentheses, and save the code. Then right-click again, choose Methods, and double-click on Close. Now enter the code Show Speed Bar, followed by parentheses. Notice the semicolon in your code. This is how you indicate comments in ObjectPAL. Comments add clarity to your code and are ignored by the compiler. You should only add comments to methods with code. Otherwise, if you add comments to empty methods, Paradox will still compile them, and that will cut down on the speed and efficiency of your application. Now save the code and run the application. You'll notice that when the form opens, the toolbar has been removed. Close the form and save it. In this lesson, you worked with ObjectPAL code and learned how to attach methods to objects. Next time, you'll learn more about controlling a variety of objects, such as multiple forms, reports, and queries. You'll also learn how to set up the interaction with your users and have Paradox ask questions. In this lesson, you'll learn about using variables to control Paradox, how to use the debugger, and some programming constructs. A variable is a place in memory where you can store data temporarily. As the name indicates, variables can change values many times during the use of an application. They can contain a user's current selection, information on performing calculations, or any information you need to track. Since ObjectPAL is a compiled language, you should declare all variables, which means specifying their type before use. This results in much more efficient execution. Let's go ahead and modify your basic form, called practice.fsl, by right-clicking on it from the project viewer and choosing Design. When you click on the Change Color button, right-click and open up the Method Inspector, you'll see that a push-button method has already been declared. Inside that push-button method is the code that sets the color of the page. What you want to do now is declare a variable to extract the color, so Paradox will only have to do the calculation once, which improves performance. Variables are declared at the beginning of your code, between the words var and endvar. You declare the variable by associating the variable name with a data type. For example, type var, page color, which is our variable name, and then string, which is the type, followed by endvar. There are dozens of data types within ObjectPAL. For beginning programmers, the basic types like number, string, small integer, long integer, logical, currency, and date are the most important. You also have UI objects, T-cursors, and all Paradox objects like forms, reports, queries, along with events of various types, arrays, and dynamic arrays. Each of these variables hold different types of information. For example, a string holds names or characters, and a form holds the name of a current Paradox form. Now let's declare a second variable, which will be the text information for a dialog box. When you have two variables of the same type, you simply put them on the same line and separate them with a comma. So after page color, enter comma, and type dialog text. Now, in your code, set your variable page color equal to myfield.value. Replace the other occurrence of myfield.value with page color. Instead of doing this calculation twice, you place the variable in the code. Check the syntax and run the form. Click on the drop-down Edit, select a color, and push the button. Now the color of your page changes. Now let's go back and create the message dialog. Move into design mode, close the method window, and place an undefined field on the form. Next, right-click and choose Display Type and Unlabeled. Then right-click again and place a simple frame around it. Name the object by right-clicking. Click on the object name and change it to Message Field. You can now right-click and double-click on the push button method and pass your variable, dialog text, the value from Message Field. Type dialog text equals Message Field dot value. At runtime, you extract the value that's been typed into Message Field. Use Message Info from the Runtime library to display a message. Type Message Info, open paren, dialog text, comma, page color, close paren. Now both your variables, dialog text and page color, will change dynamically at runtime. Run the form and test it. Type a new color into Message Field and pick a color from the drop-down. Press the button. Paradox includes a number of tools to help you in developing your applications. To demonstrate some of these, highlight your variable, page color, and go up to the toolbar. This toolbar button adds watches, giving you the ability to watch variables as they change at runtime. Let's click on the debugger and see how it looks. Then click again to close it. The Watch Window toolbar button shows you all the watches you have. At this point, let's use the watch window to watch your variables. Make sure your cursor is in page color, then click on the Add Watch toolbar button. You'll notice in the watch window that page color and the fact that it is unassigned is displayed. The second variable you want to watch is dialog text, so click on that and then on Add Watch. Now you need to stop the application to see these variables, so you need to add a breakpoint on the first line of the method. Click on the Toggle Breakpoint toolbar button and run your form. Next, you want to assign values to your two variables, so open the drop-down edit list and select blue, then type in a new value to Message Field. Now when you click on the color button, you hit the breakpoint and the debugger window opens and takes control. You can then single step, line by line, through your code by clicking on the Step Over toolbar button for single step. When you step to the next line of code, you'll notice in the watch window that your variable has been assigned both a type, string, and a value, blue. You can step through the rest of your application and watch it execute. When you've reached the end of the method, you can see that the colors are unassigned again in the watch window. They can now be reused. The watch window also has an object inspector of its own. Right-click anywhere in the window, and you'll see that you can add new variables, edit existing ones, or remove references from variables to watch. We've right-clicked on dialog text, so let's remove the reference to that variable. Now you can close the debugger by double-clicking in the upper left corner and running the application again. This time, choose red and leave the text the same. Step through the application to the line of code that assigns page color a value, red, and at this point, you can select it in the watch window, choose Change, and the Change Value dialog box opens. Type in the value yellow and choose OK. Now, as you step through your code, you can see that you've overwritten the user's selection. This gives you the ability to change the behavior of your application while you're debugging, so you can test a variety of environments. Let's close our practice application by double-clicking in the upper left corner and choosing Yes to save. Now you'll learn how to enhance your application, My App, by using a form, a query, and a report together to print a user-specified report range. First, you'll create the report. From the project viewer, select the Reports icon, then press Shift and left-click, and select the Data Model Layout Diagram option. The two tables you'll be basing your report on are customer and orders. Double-click on each of these to select them. Define the relationship between the tables by drawing a line from customer to orders and clicking on OK. You only want a few fields in your design, so choose Show Fields and click on the down arrow to move the customer number field down one place. Then hold down the Shift key and select all the fields from customer number down and click on Remove Field. This leaves only the name field. Select the Orders table and click on the Sale Date field. Hold down the Shift key and select Through the Ship Via field. Click on Remove. Then click on the Terms field. Again, hold down the Shift key and select Through the Month field and remove these as well. This leaves just the 4 fields needed from the Orders table, so click on OK and you're in the design window for a new report. Select and remove the headers by clicking on the page band to select the page header. Now open the Edit menu, choose Select All, and press Delete. Double-click to close it, choose Save, and name it Custord. The second Paradox object you'll create is a query. This query will be used at runtime with a variable containing the user's selection. You can then base the report on the results of the query. Shift-click on the Open Query icon and select the customer table. Then check the customer number and name fields. Open the File menu and choose Save and name the query Customer. Double-click to close the query. You now have your report and query. To link them together, you'll create a form to use as a dialog box. So shift-click on the Forms icon and choose a blank form. From the design window, use the scroll bars to move down to the lower right-hand corner of the form. Grab the corner and drag it toward the upper left so that you can shrink the form to a small box. You want the user to be able to select a customer name, so click on the Field Tool icon and drag out a box. Right-click on it, choose Display Type, and drop down Edit. For now, you'll just leave this list empty, so choose OK. With this new field selected, move up to the toolbar and click on the Object Tree icon. You'll see that there are 2 elements contained within the field. The first is the field itself. Using the Object Tree to name the object, right-click, click on the title, and you can name it CustName. And then click on OK. Every field of type drop-down Edit has a list within it. Right-click on that list and give it a name as well. In this case, CustList. Now close the Object Tree. Paradox provides a property called Data Source, which lets you use a specified table to fill in list values at runtime. Right-click on your field, choose Methods, and then Arrive. Now, each time you arrive on this field, Paradox can fill that list with the latest values from the table you specify. Enter the name of the list you want to fill, CustList, .data source, =, open quote, open bracket, and then the table to extract the information from, which is customer, along with the specific field, which is name. Close the bracket, close the quotes, and check your syntax. Run the form, and you'll notice when you click on the drop-down arrow, you now have a list of all the customers from the customer table. You can select one, and it becomes a part of that field. Now move into design mode and close the method. We'll create a new method to print a report using the query and the report already created. Click on the button tool, drag out an area for the button, and then click on the label. Name this button Print. You want to attach a method to this button, so right-click and choose Methods, and double-click on Push button. Enter var and endVar. Initially, you'll be working with 3 new variables. The first one is CName, a string that will contain the user's selection from the customer table. The second is your report, which you can call reportCust of type report. The last variable is your query, called queryCust of type query. A query can be executed within code by embedding a saved query file. Set your query variable, queryCust, equals, press Enter, and then go to the Edit menu and choose Paste From. Double-click on customer.qbe to select it. You'll see the query has been embedded within your method. The word query marks the beginning of the statement, which assigns a query to our query variable, queryCust. The criteria in the query can be any valid query statement. In this case, you want to use the value selected by the user, CNAME. To do this, move to the customer number field and type a tilde followed by CNAME. For neatness, even out the lines. You need to assign this variable before the query executes. So move above the query assignment and enter CNAME equals customer name dot value, which is the value selected from the field. You've declared your query. Now you need to tell Paradox to execute it. The command you use is execute QBE, which is part of the query type, followed by the variable name, queryCust, in parentheses, which tells it which query to run. When Paradox reaches this point in the code, it will execute the query and create a temporary answer table, which will automatically be cleaned up when the application is closed. Now you should add some error checking, in case the query doesn't run or there are no fields in the resulting answer table. You can use a simple programming construct, if-then, to check for these errors. First, add if space not space before the execute QBE, followed by space, then space, error show, open and close paren. Now, if the query does not execute, you will be shown the error. If you have a question about the method you're using, just place the cursor inside the method and press F1. This will take you directly to the page in the ObjectPAL reference guide that describes the method. In this case, you can see that Error Show displays an error dialog box. Now close the help window and end the if statement with an end if. Now you can tell Paradox that you want to run a report. Move back up to the var declaration block and add a new variable, custReportInfo, followed by the type reportPrintInfo. This is a special ObjectPAL variable containing an array of report print options that let you specify the report settings. In this case, you want to specify the master table for the report, which will be the results of your query and the report name. Your query results are contained within the answer.db table, which is placed automatically in your private directory with the alias priv. So move back to the if statement and add custReportInfo master table equals quote colon priv colon answer.db and end quote. The second piece of information needed in reportPrintInfo is the name of the report you want to open. In this case, it's the report you previously saved as custord. So enter custReportInfo .name equal to quote custord end quote. Finally, you want to use the report processing command open in order to open the report based on the information you stored in custReportInfo. So enter reportCust.open followed by parentheses custReportInfo close parentheses. Now check the syntax. Everything looks good, and run the form. To try out the report routine, open the drop-down list and select a customer. Now push the print button. As you can see, an error was triggered in the executeQBE method on the object of query type. This is the advantage of adding error show to the method, as it brings up a dialog to help you troubleshoot the error. Notice that the next page arrows are highlighted, indicating that there is more information. Push the button, and you will see that the expression in this field has the wrong type. Somehow a variable has been declared as a type which is different from the field that it's in. The error was encountered in the customer number field. Click OK and return to design mode to look at your query. You can see that you're extracting CNAME from the customer name field, which is a string, and placing that variable into the customer number field, which is numeric. The solution is to highlight CNAME, open the Edit menu, and choose Cut. And then paste it into the correct field, which is the name field. Now you can check your syntax and run the form. Again, click on the drop-down, select a customer, and then click on the Print button. Paradox has created a one-page report containing exactly the information requested for the customer you selected. Close the report and choose No, since you don't need to save it. Now let's go back into design mode and take the final steps to integrate this form into your application. To do so, open up the method and look at the print code again. At this point, you are using report.open, which prints the report to the screen. In your own application, you'll probably want to use report.print, so you can send the report directly to the printer. Let's add another button to close the form. So define a new button, label it OK, and then right-click to declare a method. This push button will simply close the form, so enter close, followed by open and close parentheses, check the syntax, and close the code. If you open the Properties menu and select Form, you'll see there's a window style option. Select that option, and the dialog allows you to change the form that opens in an application window to a dialog box. This makes your form modal, meaning that the user has to interact with the dialog before they can go back and do anything else. We've clicked on the dialog box, so we'll enter the title as Print Report. Now click on OK and choose File, Save, and name this form Custord. Then double-click to close the form and select your application, which is called myapp.fsl. Right-click and open it in design mode. Next, you can link the Custord form into the application by selecting the Print button you've drawn out. Right-click, choose Methods, and double-click on Push button to add new code to open the Custord form. Add a var block and enter a variable name, fCustReport. Form for type, and then nvar. Now, on a new line, add fCustReport.open, open parentheses, quote, custord, close quote, and close parentheses. And on another line, fCustReport.wait. Like reports, forms have a number of methods that you can use to operate on them. Use open to open forms, wait to wait for a user to respond to modal forms, form return to return control to a calling form, and close to close a form. Check your syntax and close the method window. Run your application. Now when you click on the Print button, it pops up the dialog in a small window. The drop-down edit is available, and you can choose any customer and select Print. Paradox prints the report. Click on OK to return to the application. Since you've completed the print modifications, let's save the form again to include these changes. Open your practice form, and we'll work with the scope and duration of a variable, which is where that variable can reach and how long it retains its value. Move into design mode and drag out a new button so that we can alter the scope of a variable. Now you're going to initialize the variable each time a method is called. To do this, you'll declare it within the method end method block. To observe the results of this variable declaration, place a blank field on the form and give it the name var field. Right-click, choose Display Type, Unlabeled. Next, by holding down the Control and right-clicking, you can choose Font, Size, and 24. Move that value over to the right, then right-click on your button and choose Methods, Push Button, and declare a variable, I, which is a small integer. Then end var. When you want a variable to initialize each and every time a method is called, you declare it within the method end method block, as you've done here. To watch this variable change, you can add an if-then routine to increment it by 1. Enter if not I dot is assigned, open and close paren, then I equals 1. On a new line, type else I equals I plus 1, followed by an end if. To display the results, add varfield.value equals I. Check your syntax, close the window, and then run the form. No matter how many times you click on the button, the value in the var field is always 1. That's because the variable is being initialized each time you push the button. To demonstrate what happens when the variable is declared before the method, let's return to design mode and copy the button and make some changes. Click on the button, then hit the copy icon on the toolbar. Move the cursor to a new position and press paste. Right-click on this button, select Methods, Push Button, and then highlight the var block, cut it, and paste it before the push button method. Again, close the method window to save the changes, and run the report. Now each time you click on the new push button, the variable increases by 1. The variable is being initialized once and then kept private to the method. This means that the method knows the value and will increment it by 1 each time you press the button. The final variable scoping rule allows you to declare a variable at a global level for an object so that all of the code associated with it will understand that variable. Again, return to design mode, copy the push button, and remove the variable definition. You can then close the push button method. Now select the newest push button, right-click, and select Methods. Then you'll notice that there is a var that's associated with the object. Double-click on it, then place the variable I and declare it as a small integer within the object's var block. Save the declaration, and now it's available to any code for that object. Now right-click, choose Methods, then mouse enter. Type in I equals 1, press enter, then type varfield.value equals I. Notice that there's no var declaration in the mouse enter method. Now check the syntax and close the method and run the form. The value for the first button is always 1, no matter how many times you press it. The second button steps in increment each time you click it. And the third button is reinitialized when the mouse enters and steps in increment when you click it. So you see that the rules of variable scoping allow you 3 options where you can declare a variable within the code. Which one you use depends on how many objects within your application need to use that variable's value. There you have the basics of object control and variables, how to declare them, how they're used, and the rules of variable scoping. In the next lesson, we'll take a look at events. Up to this point, most of the code in your application has been attached to a push button or a mouse event. However, there are many other places and other objects where code can be attached. You can use a form, a table frame, or a field, and events such as the open, the arrive, and the close. To help make an educated decision about where to place your ObjectPAL code, this lesson gives an overview of how Paradox reacts to and processes events. We'll be covering 4 areas: event info, the containership hierarchy, event flow, and bubbling. Each UI object has a built-in behavior. The push button, for example, toggles up and down when you push it. This default behavior can be supplemented or disabled. Windows is fundamentally driven by events. As an ObjectPAL programmer, you control user interaction with Paradox for Windows by watching for and reacting to events. A user can create events with the press of a key or the movement of a mouse. As a programmer, you can initiate an event or create an action just like a user. Let's take a closer look at events. You'll be using your practice form, so select the form in the project viewer, right-click on Practice, and choose Design. All events in Paradox are measurable. You can watch these events using the built-in tracer. If you open the View menu and activate the tracer, you'll see that another window opens in your design environment. Initially, what you'd like to do is look at some of the built-in methods. So open the Properties menu in the tracer window and select Built-ins. Then click on Push button, mouse up, mouse down, and then OK. Now when you run your form and click on the box, you'll see the event packet for the mouse down. Double-click on the tracer window to maximize it, and you see it contains the name of the event that was triggered, the active object, the target, some reasons, and some additional information about the event. Every event creates this event packet describing it, and the particular contents depends on the event's type, such as an error event, menu event, action event, mouse event, or status event. For now, double-click to close the tracer window. 2 key ObjectPAL commands come into play: doDefault, which forces Paradox to execute the default behavior, and disableDefault, which prevents an event's default code from executing for the current call to the built-in method. Normally, the built-in code executes implicitly at the end of a method, just before the end method keyword. For doDefault, you don't have to use the keyword unless you want the default behavior of the object to occur before any code that you add. Since Paradox normally performs the default behavior just before the built-in method ends, be careful that any code you write doesn't circumvent this. For example, if you place code at the form level that requires that an object be initialized, your code executes before the object is opened. Simply place a doDefault before your code to guarantee that all objects on your form are open and initialized before you rely on them. Now let's apply this to your practice form. Place a new button by clicking on the button tool icon and dragging it out. Then right-click, choose Methods, pin down the Methods dialog, and choose Push button. You can see in the syntax for the push button method, the words enclosed in the parentheses are var, event info, event. On the other hand, when you open the mouse down method, they are var, event info, mouse event. Event info is a variable containing information on a given event. For the push button, the variable is of type event, and for the mouse down, the variable is of type mouse event. For each type, Event info is a handle to the packet of information that describes these events. You can think of an event as an object. These different objects have methods for getting and setting information contained within event info, your event variable. You can see these methods by opening the Tools menu, choosing Types, and in the Types dialog, select Mouse Event. On the right are all of the methods associated with the mouse event type. Scroll down to the bottom of the list, and we're going to work with an example that uses the last two, method X and method Y. Method X returns the X coordinate of the mouse event, and method Y, the Y coordinate. Both X and Y coordinates are relative to their container, or the object within which the event occurred. Click on Cancel. Let's close up both of the method windows and attach some code to the mouse enter. First, draw a box around your button, then move over to the Methods list and double-click the mouse enter to open up the method window. Enter the following code: message, open paren, quote, you entered the box at, close quote, plus. At this point, you want to extract the location of the x-axis from event info. It comes out as a number, so you must convert it to a string to display it. So finish your code with string, open paren, eventinfo.x, open and close parentheses, plus, open quote, comma, space, close quote, plus, string, open paren, eventinfo.y, open and close parentheses, and two final parentheses to close your code. Let's check it. There should be no syntax errors, so you can run your form. Now when you run the mouse cursor into the box, you'll see a message at the bottom of the screen telling you exactly where on the X and Y axes that the mouse enter occurred. Each time you enter the box from a different angle, you get a different message. So you've used event info to extract the location of the mouse cursor. You'll use event info again later in this lesson. Let's go back into design mode and demonstrate the containership hierarchy. Click on the ellipse tool in the toolbar and draw an ellipse inside the box, but around the button. Objects on a form exist in a containership hierarchy determined by the placement of each object. Each object's position in the hierarchy determines the visibility of user-defined procedures, types, constants, and variables from other objects. Select the box and move up to the toolbar, and you can click on the object tree to track the hierarchy of each of these objects. You'll see that there's a box, an ellipse, a button, and the button automatically has text contained within it. You can change the containership hierarchy by right-clicking, choosing Design, and checking off the Contain Objects property. Watch the object tree when this is done. These objects are now independent of each other. Now right-click and choose Contain Objects again. You can also change the containership hierarchy by moving an object outside of any of its containers. Now the button and its contained text are no longer part of this hierarchy. Let's move it back in. A simple physical change has redefined the relationship of these objects. Paradox uses the containership hierarchy as a path to find the name of the UI object that you have used in your code. As you click on each of these objects, you can see that they're selected in the object tree. You can also select the entire form. Let's click on the form and then click on the object tree button to refresh it. When you click on the box, you can see where it falls in the object tree. We recommend that you name objects carefully, naming only those that you need to reference in your code. Try to avoid duplicate UI object names. Containership hierarchy is tied tightly to the event model, which is the set of rules that specify how events are processed by objects in the form. There are two categories of events, external and internal. External events, like a mouse click or a keyboard entry, are triggered by the user. Internal events include things like the open, can depart, and arrive. External events may then cause a cascade of internal events. There is one key difference between external and internal events. External events bubble or move up the containership hierarchy, while internal events do not. An event ascends through the containership hierarchy as defined by the object tree until it reaches the container able to handle it. This is called bubbling because the event, like a bubble, rises through its containers. So if you have a task that needs to be accomplished for multiple objects, you can place your code once at a higher level rather than having to duplicate it on every object. Let's apply this concept to your application. Double-click to close and save your practice form, and then select myapp.fsl, right-click, and move into Design. Suppose you want to send a message containing the name of the field to the status line every time you enter a field. Although you could attach code to every field, there's a better way. You can attach code to the form level. Right-click on the title bar, then choose Methods, and double-click on Mouse Enter. Notice the code attached to the form level methods. The isPreFilter method allows the form to act as a global filter for events. This method reports whether the form is handling an event on its own behalf or on the behalf of another object. Instead of placing your code on dozens or hundreds of objects all over the form, you can place them in one place at the form level. The isPreFilter method stops an event from happening twice as the result of bubbling. This could occur when the event first goes to the form, and then a second time if it bubbles all the way through the containership hierarchy and reaches the form again. First, you need to declare some variables. Open the var block, UI, type UI object, end var. Since you want the code for the status line message to execute for every object on the form, place the following information after the isPreFilter clause, which returns true. eventinfo.getTarget, and the target we want to know is a UI object. As a reminder, eventinfo is the variable containing all the information about the current event, and the getTarget method tells you the name of the UI object where the event occurred. Now on the next line, if UI.class equals field, then message open paren UI.name close paren end if close the method window. We've completed our code to post the message to the status line, but you also need to clear it each time. So right-click on the form name, choose Methods, and then double-click on Mouse Exit. You want to clear it on every item, so enter message, open paren, double quote, close paren, and place this before the else. Now check the syntax and run your form. You can see that as you move the mouse from field to field, the name of the field is displayed on the status line. Consider the purpose of the code in this example. These two methods were meant to display the name of each field on the status line as the mouse entered it. To clear the status line, you could have placed message, quote, space, quote on the mouse exit method of every object, but that would be both time-consuming and redundant. As you've seen, external events are first sent to the form and then returned to the original target. If it's an external event and neither of these UI objects knows how to handle the event, it ascends through the containership hierarchy defined in the object tree until it reaches a container that can. This phenomenon is called bubbling because the event, like a bubble, rises through its containers. Even the simplest of events, like a keystroke, may be acted on by a method far from the original target. The event rises to the container best equipped to handle it, reducing the amount of code and making your applications more intelligent. You've learned how Paradox reacts to external events and processes them by relying on the container ship hierarchy and bubbling. This makes it easier to know where to place your code. In the next lesson, you'll learn how to use the T-cursor. A T-cursor is a pointer to data in a table that lets you work with the data without displaying the table. T-cursors give you a very fast way to edit, search, and navigate the records in a table. T-cursors are ideal for behind-the-scenes table manipulation, and in this lesson, you'll learn the basics of working with them. You use the open method to open a T-cursor to a table, or use the attach method to bind a T-cursor to a UI object. There are a number of other methods, like home, next record, locate, edit, cancel edit, and others, all to control, display, and manipulate your data. Let's open your practice form and create a T-cursor to display a value. What's unique about the T-cursor is that you can search for a value in one field while displaying the results from another. Drag a button on your practice form and label it tc.open. Then open the push button method and declare a variable. var, type tc, and it's a T-cursor type, and then stcust, which is a string, and then endvar. What you want to do is prompt to receive a value from the user and place that value in the search string. View is a simple procedure to accept a value from a user. View displays the value of a variable in a modal dialog box and suspends ObjectPAL execution until the user closes this dialog. The user can change the value displayed by View and then pass the new value back to Paradox. The syntax for View is variable name, stcust, dot view, open and close paren. Open up an if-then statement and type tc.open, open paren, quote, customer.db, close quote, close paren. Note that this table is not part of the data model in your practice form. Because we are using a T-cursor, it doesn't have to be. Enter else, error show, open and close paren, and if. If there are any problems, you will be told by the system. If the T-cursor open returns true, then you can use the locate method to search. Within the if-then construct, add another if block. If tc.locate, open paren, quote, name, close quote, comma, stcust, close paren, then message info, open paren, stcust, comma, tc dot quote, street, close quote, close paren. Else, message stop, open paren, quote, not found, close quote, comma, open quote, address 4, close quote, plus stcust, plus, open quote, not found, close quote, close paren, and end if. Now check your syntax. Before you run the form, you should note one thing. If you're using tc.locate with the field names in your table, and a field name has spaces, such as last name, you must refer to the field using quotes. To be on the safe side, use quotation marks to signify field names with a T-cursor, even if they don't contain spaces. Now you can run your form and click on the tc.open button. Here's the dialog box, and you'll notice that the title bar says string, which is the variable type of the value that you're looking for. By default, View tells you the variable type in the title. Since you know that Site Diver is one of the values in your customer database, enter it. Choose OK, and you'll see that the T-cursor returned the value from the street field of the customer table. Do it again and enter XXX, and you'll see that the street value is not found. A T-cursor is extremely fast. Paradox has searched through the entire customer table in an instant. Next, let's alter the code slightly so you can see the difference between opening a T-cursor and attaching a T-cursor. Copy your button to the clipboard and then paste it back into the application. Change the label to tc.attach. This second example attaches a T-cursor to a UI object, so you have to place one on the form. To do so, click on the Table tool and drag out a table. Right-click on it and choose Define Table and the ellipses. Now add Customer into the data model by clicking on the Data Model button and double-clicking on Customer. Click on OK, and from the Customer table, choose Customer Number and Name by holding down the Shift key and clicking on the first two fields. Now you have a UI object containing these fields. Right-click on the table and add a vertical scroll bar. Open the Push Button method for this second button. Highlight the code up to the Else error show and delete it. In this case, instead of displaying the variable type on the title bar of the View dialog, give it a title. Inside the parentheses, type, quote, provide a customer name, end quote. Next, you need to attach your UI object. So enter if tc.attach, open paren, customer number, close paren, then. Notice that there is an underscore between customer and number. If a field has spaces in it, Paradox automatically renames the UI object to have an underscore in place of the spaces. Spaces are not allowed in object names. Now you need to add tc.locate, again to search through the table for a value. If tc.locate, open paren, open quote, name, close quote, comma, our variable, stcust, close paren. Then, customer number dot resync tc. Resync changes the current record pointer of a UI object to the current record of the T-cursor. What the user sees corresponds to where the T-cursor is pointing. So if you've found the record, move to it. Then add else, message stop, open paren, open quote, error, close quote, comma, stcust, plus, open quote, space, not found, close quote, close paren, end if. Now your code is complete. Check your syntax, and you see there are no errors. Run the form, click on the tc.attach button, and the dialog opens with the Provide a Customer Name title. You can again type in Site Diver and click on OK. The record for that customer becomes the current record object. Let's look for another customer, say Blue Sports Club. Click on TC Attach, enter Blue Sports Club, and Paradox moves instantly to that record, even though the record isn't in the view. These two buttons show the difference a resync makes. When you use tc.open, you are not referencing any UI object, and you don't have to resync because nothing in the display has to change. Let's close this object, and now you're ready to put the T-cursor to use in your own application. Again, double-click to close Practice, say Yes to save, and then open My App by double-clicking on it. Enter Edit Mode, go to the line item page, and move to the end of your table. You want to enter a new line item, so press Insert and then Control Spacebar to look up the stock number of the item to be placed in your order. Let's say item number 900. Click on OK, and notice that the lookup also pulls in the selling price. You can then enter a quantity of 2 and try to move off the record. But Paradox shows a key violation, indicating that you have duplicate records in the stock number field, both with the number 900. To recover, you need to delete the new record or cancel the post. So press Ctrl-Delete and remove this new entry. For your application, you'll create a method that recognizes a key violation, which is a duplicate entry in a table, and increments the duplicate line item value by the quantity ordered. In our previous example, you entered 900 and a quantity of 2, so the method will add the additional quantity to the existing line item for stock number 900 and increment the quantity. The calculated field for the total will automatically recalculate. Paradox can detect a key violation by applying the error code method in the built-in action method for 2 action constants, data unlock record and data post record. You're going to attach the code to the action method of the table frame. Move into design mode by pressing F8. Select the line item table, right-click, choose Methods, and open the action method. Start with a variable declaration. You'll use a T-cursor and 2 number variables to store the additional quantity and the stock number. Remember to type endvar. Start the code by watching event info for the specific action ID of data unlock record or data post record. When either of those events occur, you will be watching event info again, this time for the error code of PE key viol, a key violation. Error code is another packet of information you can extract from event info. Type the following code. If eventinfo.id, open and close paren, equals data unlock record, or eventinfo.id, open and close paren, equals data post record, then do default. If eventinfo.errorcode, open and close paren, equals PE key viol, then assign the value of stock number to the variable nstock and the value of quantity to the variable new quantity. nstock equals stock number dot value, new quantity equals quantity dot value. Remove the duplicate record with action, open paren, data delete record, close paren. Now attach the T-cursor to this line item table frame and use it to locate and display the original record using the resync method. If tc.attach, open paren, stock number, close paren, then tc.locate, open paren, open quote, stock number, close quote, comma, end stock, close paren. Stock number dot resync, open paren, tc, close paren. Now you can increment this quantity by the value stored in new quantity. Quantity dot value equals quantity dot value plus new quantity. Finish the code by entering else, error show, open and close paren, and 3 end ifs to close each of the statements. Check your syntax. If there are no errors, run your form. Now press the line item button to move to the second page of your form. Move into edit mode. Go down, press Ctrl spacebar, and enter 900 for the stock number again. And then a quantity of 2 and move off the record. You'll notice that the original quantity has automatically increased to include the new value. Now that you understand how to use the T cursor, there are other places you could apply it. For instance, you could use a T cursor to decrease the in-stock values from the stock number table as orders are entered. That way, your inventory will always be current, and you'll be prevented from pulling items from your stock table that are no longer there. In our next and final lesson, you'll learn about building menus. To tie your applications together, Paradox for Windows lets you construct custom application menus. In this last lesson, you'll learn how to work with menus to give your application the finishing touch. Custom application menus can reside across multiple forms and across multiple pages in your form or application. They replace Paradox's interactive menus and display across the top of an application. Each can have a drop-down list of choices. ObjectPAL gives full control of these menu items, including the display of options, graying, accelerator keys, and separator bars. Whenever possible, try to adhere to the menuing standards of Windows. Across a variety of Windows applications, you'll find standard menus like File, Window, and Help. Following this consistency makes a new application more intuitive for users. The ObjectPAL method add text adds menu choices. Add pop-up adds pull-down menus. And show displays the menu to the user. Add separator adds a line between the menu choices. For each menu item you add, you will need to attach code for processing the user selection. So let's build a simple menu for your application. Open My App in Design Mode. To display a custom menu whenever an application starts, you place the menu building code on the Open method of the form. So select the form, right-click, choose Methods, and double-click to open the Open Method dialog. You'll be using two new variable types, menu and pop-up menu. So declare a variable by typing var and envar, and within it declare the new variables. The first is menu main, which is of type menu. This will hold the information for all of your horizontal menu items. The second variable is T menu, and that's of type pop-up menu. The pop-up menu displays each of the drop-downs from the horizontal menu, and is a list of items that appears vertically in response to an event, usually a mouse click. When the user chooses an item from a pop-up menu, the text of that item is returned to the method, and you can process the user's selection. Enter a do default, which tells Paradox to open and process all of the built-in methods before your custom code begins. For your application, you will create 5 horizontal menus. You can add comments to your code right now to keep track of your menu options. The first is a File menu. The second, an Edit menu. The third, a Record menu. The fourth, a Report menu. And the final menu will be Help. Each of these menus contains a drop-down list of options defined as pop-up menus. Add text is used to add elements to the pop-up menus. So move back up to the File menu and add your first text. Add text adds a selectable string to the pop-up menu, which will then be displayed from the menu bar. T menu, the variable for the pop-up menu, stores each of these selections until you tell Paradox to display the menu. The syntax of declaring pop-up menus is the menu name, which is going to be T menu, followed by a dot, and then add text, open paren, open quote, and close paren. Within this quoted block, you put the string that you want displayed on the menu. Since this is a generic piece of code, you can copy it to the clipboard and reuse it for all your menu declarations. Your first menu option will be Insert Customer. The ampersand specifies the accelerator key for the menu choice. With the File menu open, the user only needs to press I to select the Insert Customer menu choice. Placing the ampersand before any letter in your add text declaration makes that letter the accelerator key. The next 3 menu options are Insert Order, View Customers, and View Order. Press Shift Insert to copy your add text from the clipboard. You can then enter insert ampersand order. Notice that you place the ampersand in front of order so that O is the active accelerator key for insert order. Be sure when you're declaring your menus that you don't duplicate accelerator keys. Again, Shift Insert, and the next menu is ampersand View Customers. End key and press Return. Shift Insert, and finally type View Orders. The ampersand goes before the W in View, making W the accelerator for this menu choice. Next, you want to add a separator bar to divide the menu into logical groups. Since the first 4 items are related, you'll add the bar after them with the syntax tmenu.addSeparator. Open and close paren. This is followed by your last menu option, tmenu.addText, open paren, open quote, exit, close quote, close paren. You should use the Windows standard of X as the accelerator key for exiting the application. Now you can add the contents of tmenu into the main horizontal menu choice for File. The main menu variable is called menu main, so enter menu main dot add popup. Look for a minute at the add popup syntax. Place the cursor inside add popup and press F1 for help. Then highlight the selection for popup and click on the Go To button. This takes you to the page in the manual which shows that add popup adds the heading menu name and a pop-up menu to the menu you're declaring. Close the help window and you can add these 2 sections. Open paren, quote, the menu name, which is File, close quote, comma, and tmenu, the name of the pop-up menu that you're declaring. Close paren. Now menu main contains all the information for its drop-down. You can then enter tmenu.empty, open and close paren, to empty the menu and reuse it for the next menu declaration. By reusing tmenu, you simplify your code. Remember though, that if you're going to reuse tmenu, you must empty it after each menu declaration. The final step in showing a menu is to tell Paradox to display it to the menu bar. The command for that is show. So enter the name of your menu, menu main, .show, open and close paren. Check the syntax and run the application. You'll notice that the menu bar has been replaced with your custom-defined menu. There is one horizontal option with its associated drop-downs: Insert Customer, Insert Order, View Customers, View Orders, followed by the separator bar you declared, and Exit. If you try to select any of these options, nothing happens. That's because you haven't processed your menu selections yet. Press F8 to go back to design mode and close the menu declaration on the form's open. To add the code that will respond to menu choices as they are selected, you'll use the built-in menu action for the form. So right-click on the form and choose Methods, and then double-click on Menu Action. This code will be placed after the else in the isPreFilter statement. As you learned in Lesson 5, Event Info contains the information on specific events. From this, you can extract the user's menu choice and then process a response. First, you need to declare a variable to store this menu choice. Place your variable declaration block and call your variable mChoice. The type is a string. Now you need to assign a value to mChoice. So enter mChoice equals eventinfo.menuChoice, open and close parens. This instructs Paradox's event model to extract the menu choice from the event info packet. To process a variety of menu options, you'll use a switch statement. Open the statement with switch and close it with end switch. Inside this code processing block, you can add a number of case statements, each followed by a colon. Enter case mChoice equal to, and then the exact text in quotes that is passed back from the menu event to Paradox. This has to be the exact string that you typed in. So if you used accelerator keys, they must be declared here. In this first case, quote, ampersand, view customers, close quote, colon, and the action you want Paradox to take. Here, you know that the customer information is on cust page, so tell Paradox to move there. Cust page dot move to, open and close parens. Then enter the second option. Case mChoice equals view orders. And then the processing block, ord page dot move to, open and close parens. The end switch is there as well. Check the syntax and run your application. From the File menu, choose View Orders. Paradox will go into the menu action and trigger your code to move to the Orders page. Choose View Customers and you move back to the first page. Go back to Design Mode by pressing F8. Your code so far is attached in two places, on the form Open to create the menu and on the form's menu action to process the menu selections. For commonly executed tasks, Paradox provides a shortcut in the form of menu command constants. These allow you to define the menu and process the menu action all in one place. Let's go back to the code in the form's Open method by selecting the form, right-clicking, and choosing Methods and double-clicking on Open. Place your cursor in tmenu.addTextExit and press F1. Then select Pop-up Menu and click on Go To. You'll notice that there are three forms of add text. The first allows you to add text and a simple menu name. The second is a menu name and attribute, like gray or highlighted. And the third is a menu name, attribute, and a constant ID. Within Paradox, these constant IDs are available for you to process events immediately. To see some of the constants, let's search for help on menu commands and go to that area. You can see there are a variety of menu constants for things like moving to the next window, editing, cut, copy, and paste. Now cancel out of help and you'll see how to use a constant for exit. Remember the third form of add text has the menu name, then an attribute. So to the add text for exit, add a comma and then 0, which is the default, and then another comma before the constant name. Open the Tools menu and select Constants. Then choose Menu Commands and scroll down and choose Menu Control Close. Click Insert Constant and then click on OK. Check the syntax and run your application. From your File menu, choose Exit, and now you have the option to save your form and close it. Choose Cancel, then go back into Design Mode by pressing F8. Now continue building your custom menu. Move down to the comment where you declared a block for the Edit menu, and start declaring tmenu again. tmenu.addText, open paren, quote, quote, close paren. Again, you can copy this to the clipboard to reuse it later. Enter ampersand, edit, a default attribute, 0, and the menu command constant, menu form edit data. Shift insert to copy from the clipboard, then enter CU ampersand T, comma, 0, comma, menu edit cut. Now you can do ampersand copy, comma, 0, comma, menu edit copy. And the next one is ampersand paste, comma, 0, comma, menu edit paste. Then you can add a separator, and add a menu action for filtering the data. That menu action is Menu Form Filter. Now you have completed your array and you can place it into the pop-up by entering MenuMain.addPopup. Open paren, quote, and the name of the menu, which is &edit, quote, comma, tMenu, which is the variable that you want to fill it from. Close paren. Finally, empty your tMenu as before, since you want to reuse it. For the record menu, press Shift-Insert to copy the add text statement from the clipboard. For the first item, Previous, enter &previous, comma 0, comma, and the menu command constant, menu record previous. Then copy the add text again and enter next, comma, 0, comma, and menu record next. The next one is locate, so the constant is menu record locate value. Later, you can add a separator bar if you like. Now you can add this tMenu declaration into the main menu. Enter MenuMain.addPopup, open paren, open quote, record, close quote, comma, tMenu, close paren. Add your tMenu.empty, open and close paren, and you can do the final two menu declarations, help and report, on your own. Remember to empty the tMenu after each one. Check the syntax, run your application, and now you have a complete system menu with file options, edit, records, where you can move to the previous record, go to the next one, or use the locate dialog. You also have report options and a help menu. On your own, you can go in and edit the report and help menus to add the information that you want. For instance, under the report menu, you could add options for reports on a current order, all orders, a monthly invoicing, or overdue invoicing. Remember, you have all the code to do that attached to the print button you declared earlier in Lesson 4. Simply copy the code from the button and paste it into your menu action code. There you have it. In this series of 7 lessons, you've learned the basics of ObjectPAL and used this visual, object-oriented language to create your own custom Paradox for Windows application. Now that you know how to program with ObjectPAL, there's no limit to the exciting database projects you can create. Thanks for watching and for choosing the power of Paradox for Windows.